So we have been slowly understanding, right, grabbing each one of these components that are related to music on the PlayStation, audio on this PlayStation. So far, what we have been working is basically that SPU ADPCM format where we have these audio samples, right, and then we have these voices, and then we have a channel of the PlayStation hardware that we play that voice. And yeah, everything kind of works the same, right? We have been working with these VAG files, and oh, and just opening a parenthesis. Remember when we spoke about VAG files? There is something called VAB files as well, which is basically just almost like grouping several VAG files together, then you have a VAB file. And this group of VAG files, you can kind of see it almost like a GIF, right? If you have several frames, in this case, it's almost like several VAG files, then you have a VAB. But look, I'm not going to go too much into VAB. If you want, you can just research. I can give you some, like we can kind of discuss ideas on the discussion board, and we can kind of go and evolve and actually use VAB files if you want, but I'm not going to go that far in our course. What I want to talk to you about is we need to move away from these small sound effects to actually use background music, right? Something longer, something that we can play while we are racing in the track, while we are navigating the map. Look, the PlayStation was a very, very good audio quality machine, right? And especially with the whole CD subsystem, it has all this baggage of having this really good quality music. And music in games, audio in games is super important, right? Sometimes we take things for granted and we don't realize how much it adds to immersion, how much it adds to the whole experience of playing a game, music, right? And I am aware of that. I'm not really a sound programmer and an audio programmer, but I'm aware of the importance of audio and music in games, right? And the whole thing. Look, when I was growing up, I have to say that music was always something very important to me, and that is why I want to zoom in, right? Take my time, savor this moment, and talk to you, right? It's nice for me to kind of share these experiences that I had when I was growing up with the PlayStation, not just the PlayStation, but the audio in actual IBM PCs, right? Because that was mostly what I was playing also at home. So yeah, music is super, super important, and I want to talk to you about this different way that we can. It's not going to be just as simple as getting a voice sample VAG file and loading into the DRAM, right, of the sound chip, and then asking the SPU to play that sample. It's going to be a little bit different. And the way that I'm going to approach that is this. I am going to make a judgment call, and I want to show you something different, which is going to be this. We are going to use a different method of playing music, which is going to rely basically on the capability of the compact disc to have different tracks, right? So remember when we spoke, we had a session before where we spoke about these different tracks of the CD-ROM and how the CD-ROM has these ideas of having this table of contents of information with different tracks, and then these different tracks, they can be data tracks or they can be audio tracks. I am going to use exactly that. We are going to encode and we're going to have a raw audio as a different track in the CD. So it is going to be what people call a red book track, right? So we are going to have different tracks on the CD, and they are going to be red book, meaning that you can play them in a CD player if you want, right? If you actually go to track 2, 3, 4 of the CD, you can actually use that in a CD player normally as if it was a normal CD audio that you bought on a music store. But this is the thing. The first track is going to be reserved for the data, right? For your game, your assets, everything that is data is going to be encoded in this first track. But we are going to have then the second, third, fourth, fifth tracks with the music. So I want to add, let's say, a WAV file, right? They're going to have to be a certain format following a couple of rules, right? They have to be encoded at a certain bit rate. We're going to have this WAV file that respects a couple of rules. So we're going to encode and record and store those WAV files as red book tracks in our CD. All right? And the question is, what music, right? So what type of tunes, what type of tracks are we going to actually have with our game? Because it doesn't matter if I'm going to record these things as red book audio, different tracks. I want to then learn via code, right? We're going to have to code and program a way of as we are playing our game, we go and we access a different track and we ask to play a different track of the CD. That's how we're going to approach this, right? So it's going to be kind of a different way. We're going to read the table of contents, we're going to go into these different tracks and then access the track that we want and say, PlayStation, play that track for me. What type of songs do we want? Well, I was thinking about that, and I think instead of just using the same songs that came with the Wipeout CD, and let's just do something different, right? Music's something that I love, and I have been in love forever, and I don't really play professionally, but I used to play blues and jazz and things like that, mostly like keys, pianos, Rhodes, a Hammond organ. So what I want to do is, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to see in the next days, I'm going to see if I can record something from scratch, right? So I'm going to try to create a tune or one or two tunes myself. Maybe I can get someone to help me with the whole production and the electronic music type of things as well. And then I can kind of just do the organic sounds with the piano and Rhodes like that. So I think it's going to be super cool, right? Instead of having just copying something from the internet like a MP3 or a WAV file, I want to try to do that myself. I want to try to create an original tune that has never been played before. I'm just going to go record and see if I can do that. And for that, I'm going to go and I'm going to explore one of my favorite styles of music ever, right? Whenever I was growing up, it was kind of overlapping my teenage years. It's something called jungle, right? Some people call it kind of also drum and bass, but yeah, it's jungle music. It was something that it coincides with the whole PlayStation era, right? The PlayStation, Nintendo 64 years right there. As we were entering this, people developing this technology to produce electronic music, right? Using synthesizers, using samplers, using all the power of digital machines to add these digital components to music as well. So you have to understand, right? Always putting ourselves back into that era, late 90s, early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, in that bracket of time where we have this type of games. Wipeout was very known for using electronic music and being one of the pioneers in using this whole clubber scene from the era. I am going to go with one of my favorites, and it was actually a staple in most games for the PlayStation because of the whole high pace nature of the style, which is jungle music, right? So I'm going to just go with jungle music. I'm gonna reserve maybe and write a little article about jungle, how people used to use, the idea of using samples, breaking down things into samples, recording breaks from drum, drum excerpts from other songs and vinyls. So yeah, you have this whole culture around electronic music that developed at the time. I'm going to kind of use that, and I'm going to zoom in and explore that area and, like I said, try to record something myself, right? I don't think I've ever done that. I played other different styles of music, but I've never actually sit down to produce anything that was jungle related. Even though I love jungle and love drum and bass, I've never even tried to do anything like that. But I'm gonna try that right now, right? This is our time, we have time, let's just savor this moment and see if we can do that. Cool. That being said, in the next lecture, I want to talk to you about maybe show to you how I went about creating, recording the tracks. I'm not going to waste too much time with that. I just want to show what I did, record a couple of samples in the piano, see if I can have some help with the whole drum sequence and drum beats and kind of put everything together, use some synthesizers. Let's see how that works, right? And after I get that done, then yeah, we can basically just get that track, encode that track and save that track as a WAV file, and then add that as an actual CD track, right? So we can actually have a CD track as this red book audio in the CD, and then we are ready. Once we have that in the CD, then we are ready to just go and learn how to, using C code, we can just ask and say, look, PlayStation, play this track of the CD at this moment of the game, or play the other track of the CD at that moment of the game, right? So then we can use the programming powers, our programming chops, to actually make that happen.